Welcome to Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans, Level 2. This is Lesson 6, Part 2 of 2. This lesson is all about the flying rainbow lasagna and the resulting new vibrations that are available to species on planet Earth and elsewhere. So since you are students of this course and you have watched Level 1, Lesson 18, you are familiar with the idea that humanity and the state of human DNA as it currently exists is not the original structure or format of that DNA, but that what we currently have is a type of interference between the connectivity of one's DNA and the sun. So the basic idea is that humanity and the human body was, a full spectrum humanity, of course, was created to be a perfect conduit, a perfect connector between the, corporeal world of flesh and solar consciousness. It was meant to be a perfect, divine connection, and I'll use purple, violet, because that's the color of the connection to the divine. And, in Lesson 18, I talk about how there was a disruption, a blockage, or a, static on the line. Interlopers came in and interspersed or spliced their own DNA into the existing DNA. And I mentioned in Lesson 18 and described how this was the invention of disease, that before that experience, viruses did not exist. There was no way for a pathogenic, opportunistic virus to exist because everyone was in such a state of total and perfect alignment with higher consciousness and existed in such a state of vitality that there was not a place where opportunistic viruses and other diseases could exist. And certainly there was not the experience of genetic-based diseases such as cancer. And in the previous lesson that I just did, the previous segment of this lesson, I spoke about how I am now asking you with your yoga of perception to stretch your perception and think about DNA as the physical conduit or portal through which some of these stellar emanations manifest. That this light that is coming off of the sun, this light and this consciousness, is manifesting on a molecular level as the twisting and morphing and do-si-doing of your genes right here as they go through their process of furling and unfurling. So we understand now in this moment that the experience here of being cut off from source is an artificial experience, that this is not the natural resting state, and this is not the natural format for human genes. It is understood that human genes were tampered with, and not one time, but really many times over history, and history being the story of humanity, literally his story. So I asked you to consider that genes are connected to timelines and the non-physical emanations of the sun, the non-physical consciousness emanations and awareness emanations of the sun. And I've just mentioned diseases of the genes such as cancer. So now we can make that if A is to B and B is to C, then A is to C cognitive leap, that some diseases such as cancer that are diseases of one's DNA are actually diseases of the timelines. And we start to understand, what is DNA? I mean, some of this is ancestral consciousness. Some of this is the ideas and information of previous generations that have been passed down to you and form a portion of your inner operating system. And I've also spoken about how your operating system, which we would say is here at the level of yellow, that's the solar plexus and the conscious human mind, we would say that that operating system is seriously flawed, because that is what creates cellular aging, disease, and eventual death. remember when I told you in lesson 18 that this experience of being, cut off from the source here is an unnatural state, and that our bodies were intended to last for a very long time, much more than a mere 100 years if one is lucky. Our bodies were meant to last for many, many hundreds, if not thousands of years. But that is what it's like when you live in total divine harmony and in a total connection, a state of connectivity with higher consciousness. And so that higher consciousness, or that divine intelligence, is broadcast to us through the sun, but remember, it actually emanates from the central black hole of our galaxy. And so here I'm just drawing a galaxy up there. That is the great source of the intelligence, or the organizing principle, and that the sun is our most local conduit of that intelligence. Well, now we're talking about the flying rainbow lasagna. Hi, I'm the flying rainbow lasagna. We are talking about the way that I invented to the solution, or get around that genetic break between humanity and the source. That this right here, this red, could be analogous to like static on the line. Like, you want to connect, you want to get through, you want to not only send energy to higher consciousness, but also receive energy from higher consciousness, but there is a genetic block. And when I talk about a genetic block, you can now understand it as experienced in the mind, yellow level of the mind, the speaking, verbal, conscious, waking mind, and that it is it prevents you from achieving a particular vibration. So I've spoken about in previous lessons the importance of inner silence, of stilling the mind, of not using that installed operating system, and instead connecting with a different form of intelligence that one has that is at this level of the higher perception, and it is a non-verbal intelligence. This insight here that happens through the indigo chakra, it is a non-verbal, purely abstract, empirical understanding, and it does not involve the verbal understanding of consciousness at this level. So of course it can often be difficult to put insights into words, and I face that challenge, and I feel most comfortable putting my insights into a visual language, such as a painting or animation, or even using my pen in order to be able to gesture while I'm talking, because my perception is so very visually based. So the flying rainbow lasagna over here, this is the solution, or the bridge, to how to get past all of this blockage that is there on a genetic level, on a level of mental programming. And what the flying rainbow lasagna does is essentially goes into the next highest dimension. It builds a bridge up and over this way, in exactly the same way that you could imagine, like here you are, stuck to the flat plane of a piece of paper, right? And you can't get past something that's a blockage over here. But what if you can jump off the surface of that paper, go around the blockage, and then come down on the other side of it? Well, that is what is going on over here. That is what the flying rainbow lasagna allows you to do on the level of your genes, on the level of microcellular torus or tori that your genes are comprised of. So over here, you can see this is a diagram. I did not create this diagram. I took them from scientific books so that they would be very accurate and we could work very well with the scientific vocabulary here. But here you see a torus, a beautiful donut. So that is exactly like the beautiful torus-shaped energy fields that I draw all the time. This would be the cutaway, right? But here's the donut's hole, here's the donut's hole. So you're familiar now with what we're looking at a picture of here. So here's one donut, and then here's a whole stack of donuts. And that stack of donuts is part of the supercoiling of your DNA. It's the way that your DNA is not only twisted up and, a holder of kinetic potentiated energy, or kinetic energy that has been formed into potential energy, but it's also woven together into various twisting and morphing patterns. So these stacked up donuts over here, I like to say they are ripe for being lasagnified. We can apply any place where we have a torus, a donut, we can apply the flying rainbow lasagna. And I've spoken about that in previous lessons, how we do it by placing it in a context and then moving the little singularity at the center point up and down, and we create the flying rainbow lasagna shape, which ends up being, like this as one lower flange, and then I guess the other one would be over here, like that. So we are essentially, I'm erasing so I can draw this on the diagram, but essentially what we're doing in this image over here is popping it out like that. Like that would be one flange of the lasagna, all right, kind of popped out like that. And then the other flange would be on the other side, going down like that. And then going, I'm just using a different color, going around the edge here would be the curly edge of the lasagna noodle. And you can do that with all of this whole stack of donuts. I'm just choosing a good color that will show up against this red, but you could imagine all of these guys here as being stacked up, nested donut shapes, just like you see going on down here in this painting that I did, where I'll enlarge it so you can see it a little bit better. But there you see all of the various layers of the lasagna, which have been stacked up and, kind of one within the next, just like that. So that is exactly what's going on here, the stacking of the donuts and creating them into the lasagna shape. And yes, if you simply overheard this lesson, it might make you feel a bit hungry, but we're really talking about higher dimensional donuts or microscopic donuts and lasagna on a mental level. Changing your DNA on a microcellular level into the shape of various, stacked up flying rainbow lasagnas has an impact on your overall electromagnetic field and vice versa. It's like, how do we become a flying rainbow lasagna? Well, the first thing that you do is you begin to stretch your perception by doing yoga of the perception, by thinking about life and viewpoints, your personal viewpoint of experience in a more multi-dimensional way, understanding that you're, experiencing a time cone and that your chakras are made of timelines and that your decisions are shifting your awareness from timeline to timeline. That is part of beginning to become a flying rainbow lasagna shaped full spectrum human. It has to do with embodying these concepts. Here's the answer, my friends. Your DNA is affected by your thoughts and your consciousness. When I was speaking in lesson 18 about, these blockages over here, the red blockages that were put in there artificially, as part of the limiting factor and in human development and preventing humans from reaching their highest potential. Well, this is all about your DNA being an expression of thoughts. Thoughts affect your DNA. And your DNA, we would say, can be the limiting factor to what you can think, but no longer like it used to be that one's DNA and the shape of it could limit you from embodying certain concepts that would set your mind free, like the idea of being able to fold space and time. Some of these yellow thought constructs, some of these things that are going on down here in this artificially created operating system that is known as, human society and verbal language and human culture, that a lot of those ideas are antithetical to, doing this connection to higher source. A lot of those ideas have to do with linear thinking and the limited nature of time and space and the limited nature of consciousness, and that the flying rainbow lasagna over here is a bridge that allows you to connect energetically around those thought limitations, around those ideas that used to hold one back from being able to connect with, let's say, galactic consciousness, to conceive of galactic consciousness, and then to connect with it. So basically what I was saying in the previous segment of this lesson, because I am the first person who ever created a flying rainbow lasagna and was then able to go across this bridge, I was able to embody some of this new energy, new vibrations were able to get to Earth that had been blocked out, that weren't able to get here for thousands of years. This is like saying that you had a huge backlog in your voicemail or your inbox, that you had a cosmic inbox that was like messages that were waiting to get in for tens of thousands of years, and that it wasn't until the creation of this bridge of consciousness, making a connection and becoming a conduit between these two realms, that now finally that idea, those ideas, that consciousness, that level of energy can come. That's the new vibration. That's what I'm talking about when I say the flying rainbow lasagna and new vibration, because there are new vibrations that are now able to be accessed while one is in the third dimension, while one is in the physical realm of Earth. This is a new thing since 2001, and you can also understand that that is part of the change and shift in the events in human culture since 2001. That humanity has had certainly a raising of its collective vibration and a raising of each person's personal vibration, because once you are able to get around this red, genetic blockage, that stuff, that goo that is blocking things up, once you're able to get around, you connect to the source of all ideas, all energy, all consciousness. All of a sudden you start getting all of this new nutrition for your non-physical self, ideas that can be life-saving, behaviors and new ways of putting together society and new ways of organizing your perception that are life-saving. They're essential. It is essential to check your cosmic inbox and go through all of the new messages that you just got, because we just got a whole lot of, let's say, upgrades. Not only genetic and cellular upgrades, but consciousness upgrades. And these are what allow us to embody ideas on an ever higher level. When I say embody, it means, you have this corporeal form, which is so valuable and so lovely as a conduit into the third dimension. Through this corporeal form, we can be active in the denser realms. We're not just, thoughts floating around in the world of pure energy. We actually are able to embody and anchor those thoughts into the physical reality by being a neurology that contains the consciousness that contains those thoughts. So once the flying rainbow lasagna was created, it's like saying that there's an energetic bridge. Now this is energy that can come across not only to me, but to anyone. That is the whole point. That's the way that the universe works. Once a new thought is created, any place, no matter where it is in the universe, because thoughts are non-local. This is part of getting past this red stuff over here. The idea of thinking that thoughts are local only to your neck of the woods, your little geographic zone, is part of old thinking. That's flatland thinking. You have to understand that all minds are connected, and in the world where all minds are connected, all time is now. And if you think something over here, even if you live on this, portion of the galaxy, and here's another portion of the galaxy all the way, billions of light years away, this being so far away still has access to that thought that you just thought. Yes, has access to, because we are all part of this much greater mind, of this much larger organism. And so this is part of taking cosmic responsibility for one's emanations, understanding that we are all connected and that what I am sending out is connected to not only people in my distinct geographic area, like my planet, but is connected to beings everywhere. So the Flying Rainbow Lasagna has allowed beings everywhere, if they have something that is shaped like a donut, a torus, they can turn it into a Flying Rainbow Lasagna. So it is really quite a revolutionary concept that is being applied all over. It's being applied throughout our whole galaxy and throughout our whole system. And what is happening on Earth in terms of all of a sudden these beautiful new violet broadcasts are able to get through. Well, that's changing humanity on a mass level. And humanity is analogous to the neurology of the planet. Like if we looked at the oceans as the planetary blood and we looked at the trees as the planetary lungs, we could look at humanity as the planetary neurology. And that when humans have been thinking erroneous thoughts down here at the level of yellow because of that flawed operating system, creating this genetic blockage across here, or being created by the genetic blockage also, that disharmony created by those thoughts that are not harmonious and connected to the source has been affecting the entire planet. The entire planet has been out of tune for tens of thousands of years. And the good news is that now the planet is getting tuned up back into its proper vibration. And that means that these red things over here that have blocked up people for so very long are now being removed. They're being erased. Genes are being changed and put together in the way that they were meant to be put together. And of course, this is a process. We are in transition. It takes time for this process to happen and for it to be accepted thoroughly on a cellular level within each one of us. So it is a change in your inner energy structure. It is a change in the thoughts of your conscious waking mind. It is a change in the shape of your DNA and the dance moves that your DNA are performing, and it is a change in the shape of your timelines, because remember, we are now connecting DNA over here to the expression of timelines that I have always been drawing like this, that we now understand DNA as being a portal through which the truth of these various multiplicity of timelines are being expressed. And we will also talk about this, percentages, that, on a planet like this, we are talking about percentages, that there are conscious beings of various different levels, and we might say, okay, if there is a percentage of beings that are operating at 100% consciousness, and then there's a percentage of beings that are operating at, 50% consciousness, so we can say that there are beings who are connecting, past this red blockage over here, to a various degree. People connect, using the newly created pathways into another dimension to varying degrees. So the blockages that exist over here, these red blockages, for some people have not shifted very much. For some people, they have completely removed their blockages and they no longer have to live according to the limitations that were programmed into them from their ancestors via their parents and society and culture. And we're talking about limitations about what your body can do, where you can get your resources from, and how you must experience reality. And basically it takes away victimhood. You understand that you are not a victim of reality, you're not a victim of your genes. Every single one of your thoughts and actions is affecting your genes and affecting the genes of others, and everything that you are sending out is bouncing off of other beings, yourself, in another format, and bouncing back to you, and you take responsibility for your emanations and begin to see that the world is far from an arbitrary, world of just mere chaos, or a world controlled by a capricious and, puerile deity. It's a world that is very simple and based upon cause and effect and based upon what you are sending out, interact as energy, interacting with other energy, and then returning to you so that you can learn about what it is interacting with. And that's that journey of consciousness. That's what I was speaking about in previous lessons, about the journey of consciousness coming to know itself. So through the diversity of beings here, of individuated beings, you are not only yourself, you have these other emanations outside of you that you may interact with in order to learn about yourself. And this has everything to do with you impacting other people's genes and other people impacting you. Like in lesson 18 of last semester, I spoke about how this installed operating system at the level of yellow and, the blockages that operating system gives us, that is in many ways imposed upon a tiny child. Like, you are taught language, you are taught certain ways of thinking and being simply by virtue of marinating here amidst this time and place. And in fact, if you don't gain a yellow operating system, you are thought to be, mentally defective, like there is something wrong with you. So it is pretty much essential equipment that you're going to get installed with this yellow operating system, whether you like it or not. But then, of course, going into adulthood, as we begin to claim our will, and yellow is also the level of the will. It's the level of human consciousness and human intellect and of humanity making conscious choices and saying, I choose to do this, or I choose to believe in this, I don't choose to do this. And that's a very healthy stage of one's evolution to go through, because we are meant to be free. We are meant to experience free will. We are not meant to have things imposed upon us or forced upon us as slaves, and that this change in the genes that happened tens of thousands of years ago really was a form of mental enslavement. That this was a limiting of people's perceptions to such a degree that people could no longer be making informed choices. And how can you take full responsibility and be a galactic citizen when you don't have full perception and you can't make informed choices because you don't have all of the information that you require? So now that we are at this point of being able to create a bridge with the Flying Rainbow Lasagna, get around the blockades, begin to reactivate on a mass level this level of consciousness in each one of us, which is, hello, Christ consciousness. So we're talking about waking up everybody's third eye over here on a mass planetary scale, and that is called, the return of Christ, or Christ consciousness coming to Earth. And that the more people who have embodied, energy on that level of higher consciousness, that is having an impact on all of the DNA that exists on the planet. Because I spoke about in the previous segment how your DNA is vibrating, and it's like an antenna. And it not only receives information and energy, it sends out information and energy. So this is very, very simple. Like, what you do matters in your life. What you think matters. What you choose to think and send out and emanate to other people in terms of your, thoughts and conscious emanations really does have an impact on the entire planet and the structure of the neurology of all of the thought beings that are on the planet and that are using this world in order to learn. So this is, again, yoga of perception, where I'm asking you to stretch your sense of identity to encompass the neurology of the larger creature of Gaia, the planetary creature, and also the larger structure of really how this DNA is meant to be a tube or a conduit or a connector between the sun and humanity. And when all is going well, we are in total connectivity with the sun. So it's a beautiful sunny day right here, and I hope that each one of you is connecting with the sun at this moment. Thank you so very much.